So Canon today made some brand new announcements for their EOS R5, and this camera is shaping up to be one of the more exciting cameras that is going to launch this year. Let's take a look at the specs and do a bit of short discussion on what it means to photographers and videographers. Hello everyone, I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions, and today we will look at the new announcements for the Canon EOS R5. Just 12 hours ago, Canon did a virtual conference, and this virtual conference is mainly for their video products. But in addition to that, at the end of the video, they actually announced some brand new specs for the EOS R5, and the announcement is mainly video-centric in nature. However, for photographers, there is some to gain. So let's first look at what has been announced so far and what has been announced 12 hours ago. Firstly, let's take a look at what has been announced so far. The Canon EOS R5 is known firstly to have a brand new sensor. Next, it has a 8K 30p capability for its videos. And then it has inbuilt body stabilization. It has 12 FPS mechanical, 20 FPS electronic. And lastly, it has dual card slots. There's of course also pictures of it in terms of its physical dimensions and of course all its ports and buttons. That has been announced so far before today's announcement. So today's announcement mainly, as I said, is on its video functions. And let's take a look at them and discuss a little bit and how does it affect the stills function of this camera itself. Firstly, it has AF across the board regardless of its video mode. That is important because it does show how powerful the processor is, that even in 8K mode, it does have full AF. And not only that, it has also AF for its more extreme 4K modes, which is 4K 120. And it does show how powerful this new processor is, because without that kind of capabilities and processing power, 4K 120 with AF probably cannot exist. And if you look across the board, there is really very little cameras that can do 4K 120, and there's even lesser camera that can do 4K 120 with full AF. So you have to give Canon credit for having one of these cameras out there. And it is probably the cheapest 4K 120 with full AF camera out there ever. So let's go back to its 8K specs. And in 8K specs, it shows in two modes. Either you want 8K RAW or you want 8K 10-bit. And in 8K 10-bit, it does H.265, which is a very standard one, and it does in C-Log or HDR. Either is fine and either is great. But let's take a look at this 8K RAW itself. 8K RAW is important for a few things. Firstly, it does tell you what is the data rate output of this camera capable of. And secondly, it does let you guess roughly how many megapixels this sensor have. Now, why do I say that? Because firstly, 8K RAW in most camera makers, they will just take the full sensor width and the number of lines required and just output it out. If you look at like the 1DX Mark III, which is a 5.6K, very weird number, or the C500, which is a 5.9K, or the S1H, which is 6K. All of them are just taking the full width of the sensor and dumping it out. Let's assume that they do the same, because I don't believe Canon will not do the same as their C500 or their 1DX Mark III. So this sensor is definitely either a 40 megapixel sensor if it was standard 8K, or 45 megapixel if it was a DCI 8K. Either way is great, and that is good news for stills photographer itself. And it also shows the data rate of this camera, because RAW is huge, and a simple comparison is that the C200, which I have here, does RAW at 4K, giving a file of nearly, filling up a 128 gig card within 16 minutes. 128 gig in 16 minutes, that's how much space that RAW needs for 4K. Now this is 8K RAW, so it needs about at least 3 to 4 times the amount of data, assuming that Canon did some wizardry to it. But RAW should not have any wizardry, and maybe some compression there is. If not, this RAW is going to be something like at least 3 to 4 times the size of a C200 RAW, which you can guess is going to give you about 5 minutes in 128 gig. Or if you put at 512 gig, that's going to be 20 minutes in 512 gig. That is the data rate that you are looking at in this R5, which is important because it also shows you the buffer and the card readout speed. So let's take a look at its 4K also. Now 4K, it does 120, which is the headline specs, because 120 with full FPS, with full AF and with 10-bit internal, that is unheard of in the industry. This is probably like the first camera, if not, I think The Red can do it too, but that camera costs nearly 10 times more. And the Red doesn't have AF, or should I say proper AF. This has full dual pixel AF, which I believe can track. Hopefully no Canon don't say just AF but cannot track. There is some weird oddities again. If not, this 4K 120 with full AF and 10-bit internal recording is panning out to be one of the more exciting specs, because 4K is still widely used in the industry. 8K is great, but a lot of people use it mainly for cropping, but 4K is something that I think a lot of users will want to use, and 4K 120 is definitely really exciting in that regards. So beyond all these video functions itself, which you know it just shows you how powerful this camera is, let's take a look at some other functions that affect both the stills and the video functions. Firstly, there is the newly announced proper announcement of the IBIS, and the IBIS will now have full 5-axis image stabilization. So this is definitely a mechanical inbuilt image stabilization. So it's definitely not some electronical wizardry like what people guess. It is definitely a proper mechanical image stabilization of 5-axis. And this 5-axis image stabilization also works with the lenses. So it's going to be something like a dual IS system that can be found in Olympus or Panasonic. So this is great news because, you know, with the lenses like 35 1.8, this is going to give you a IS easily of 3 to 4 stops, which is really good. You are looking at 35, think about it, 20, 10, 5, 1:3, 1-3 in terms of IS capability on a 35mm lens. Fantastic capabilities itself. The next announcement that they have, and the last one, is the dual card slots. So in the last video, I guessed that the dual card slot is going to be one CF Express and one SD, and it seems to be true. So Canon confirmed this, and it's one CF Express and one SD. So why is this important? Okay, so the SD card, there's nothing to talk about, but CF Express does show you how much buffer this camera is going to have. Now, CF Express is required because it does 8K RAW. As I say, 8K RAW will probably produce a bitrate of easily 4,000-5,000 megabits, which will require literally 1,000 megabytes, about 800 to 900 megabytes a second to throughput into the card itself. That is really important because look at this mechanical and electronic shutter frame rate. The mechanical is 12 FPS, the electronic is 20. 12 FPS mechanical for a 45 megapixel sensor will produce you 900, 800, I believe, or 800, 900 megabytes per second. And definitely that's the same as the 8K RAW. So you can safely say with mechanical shutter, this camera will definitely have infinite buffer. There is no doubt. I don't think we need to guess anymore. But for the 20 electronic, there is something to guess still, because 20 electronic, if let's say Canon does it the way they do their RAWs normally, you are looking at something about 1.2 to 1.4K megabytes, 1.2 to 1.4K gigabytes, or 1,200 to 1,400 megabytes a second. Now that is still within the limits of the CF Express, but it depends on how they implement the reader itself. It may be fast enough that there is no buffer issues, but based on the 1DX Mark III, when they shoot the camera itself in its full 20 FPS mode, the buffer do drop a little. It's just that it clears really quickly. I'm assuming that the R5 will be the same, which means that it will drop, but it will clear really quickly. And not only that, the time taken to drop it will take a long time. Assuming that this guy have probably, let's say, 1 gigabyte of buffer. So 1 gigabyte of buffer will give you easily a raw capability of 20 shots. 20, I believe, about 18, 15 shots. And assuming that the CF Express is really quick enough, to output all the files, all the buffer into the CF Express card, you are looking at a camera that can shoot probably 10 seconds or at least 8 to 10 seconds of non-shot 20 FPS, 40 megapixel photos before the buffer fills up. And when the buffer fills up, it's going to get cleared within a second or two. So it's going to be really impressive in terms of its buffer and continuous shooting capabilities. There is no doubt with the R5 and the CF Express slot. Now the thing is that there is a SD card slot, so the SD card will be a bottleneck in many ways. Canon did say that the SD card slot can be used to shoot videos of lower bitrate formats, assuming there will be 4K, probably 4K 30 or 4K 60 in standard 8-bit or 10-bit formats, but I don't assume that it can be used much for videos. And in terms of photos, if you use it, expect long buffer clearing time, Because 40 megapixel cameras are huge. In terms of file size, you're looking at 16 meg a file, so you know, just like 3-4 shots would require 1 second to clear. So if you want high-speed capability, you may just want to shoot into a single cut slot, the CF Express slot. But if you want redundancy, especially when you're doing work out there, you want dual cut slots. Now, dual cut slot is still perfectly fine unless you burst. So if you're not a sports photographer, you probably won't face that issue yourself. So that's about it for the announcement of the EOS R5. It's shaping up to be one of the more exciting cameras launched this year. And I'm definitely very excited because, you know, you can see here, this is the 2870. And now with the EOS R5, with its new AF capability, with its new IBIS, this is going to be shaped up to be one of the best traveling cameras in the world, because a zoom that is f2 follow up with a camera with IBIS, you can literally shoot anything in almost any conditions, and Canon lenses are very well weather sealed, so I don't doubt that they will work in almost any conditions out there. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe for more. I believe that the next R5 announcement will probably include the delivery date, because today there is no date of delivery itself. And pretty much that's about it. And I hope you enjoyed this. See you next time. Bye bye.